So let's open that up in our text application and make some changes. Now the first thing we want to do down in our body content is to set up the video tag itself. I'm going to place it right around the text that we have here. I'll start out with a normal video tag. And like other tags, we need a close video tag, which I'm going to put below this line of text. Now the way this should work is our text that we see here will only appear in a browser that does not support the video tag. By default, in newer browsers, any text inside the video tag will be ignored, so it won't appear and they'll just see the video. Now of course we need to add a few attributes in order for the video to be hooked up. So let's go up to our beginning video tag, and the first attribute that I want to add is the tag that tells us what video we want to play. That's the source attribute, or SRC. We'll set that equal to our first test video. And if you want to, we can just go right back down to the file and select the entire name and copy it so we won't have to type it in by hand. I'll close off the quotes. And actually, this is all we need to show video. So let's try it out. I'll save my changes. Let's go back to our browser and I'll refresh the page. Now we can see something showed up here. It's actually the very first frame of the test video that I've included, but it's not playing and we don't have any controls to play it with. So we're going to need to add a little bit more to the code if we want really functional video instead of it just to show up. Now we can also notice that the supporting text about the browser not being the right version did not show up here. So that must mean that our video is working okay. Let's go back to our document and let's make a few changes. Now in order to get my video to actually play properly, I'm going to need to add a couple of attributes up in here. The first one we can try is autoplay. Now the autoplay property has only one value. It's what we call a Boolean property, and we've seen a couple of these before. The long way to write it would be autoplay equals autoplay. But it's a little bit redundant. So what a lot of people do is just put the property in by itself and leave the value off. Either way will work in our browsers. But this will signal our video to start playing immediately as soon as it's loaded up onto the page. So let's save our changes and let's see how this affects our playback. I'll refresh our page and there you can see the video playing a normal countdown sequence, which is just really a test that we could put at the beginning of the video. When it gets to the end, it just goes to a black screen because that's the way the video ends in this case, so it just stops. Now obviously we may want to have a little bit more control with our videos. We're much more used to having play and pause buttons and volume controls when there's sound applied. So let's go back to our document and we'll set that up by using another attribute. We can use the controls attribute. This attribute is also a Boolean. It's either on or off. And the long way to write it would be controls equals controls. But if we want to go with the shorthand, we can just skip the value just like we did with autoplay and just include it, and that will signal to our browser that we want to have a set of video controls available to the user. Let's save our page, and let's go on out and test it. Now you can see my video is still playing back, but when I roll over it, a control set appears, and I can pause the video, move it backwards, let it play again, and even though we don't have sound in the video, you can see that we do have control over volume if there were sound. Well, now we can see it doesn't take too much to get our video functional, but there are still a couple of additional attributes that you should use when you're setting up video on your site. Back in our document, I'm going to add one of those attributes right after the source here, and that is the type attribute. Since we have 3 different types of video that can possibly be played, it's a good idea to tell the browser which one you have. Different file converters will use some different extensions at the end, so we can't always identify them by file type or extension name. And for our Theora file, I'll use video/OGG. That tells the browser what type of media we're using so it can set itself up properly. Now 2 other attributes that we should be using with video are width and height, and we're going to use them very much like we did with the image tag earlier. Now even though you can use these to scale your video, it's not really a good idea. If you try to display the video bigger than it's supposed to be, it'll look pretty distended and have a lot of artifacts in it. And if you try to make the file smaller than the original video is, you're actually making your user download the big video file and only showing it to them small. So you'd be better off resizing the file itself. What we really are going to use the width and height attributes for is to inform the browser how big the video is going to be. Remember, video files can be big and might take a little time to load. If we tell the browser how big the video is, it can leave space for it and continue rendering the rest of the page. So I'm going to add in a width and height for this one. If I go down to my folder and click on the MP4, you can see that my Macintosh operating system gives me a size for it and tells me it's 320 by 240. So I'm going to go ahead and add that into my video tag. We'll add a normal width attribute, and that's 320 pixels. And then we'll add a height of 240 pixels. If we save our changes and we go out and refresh the page, our video will still play just like it did before, but now at least the browser knows how big it is before it starts to render the elements.